I'm talking with Chad O. Jackson. He is an entrepreneur and influencer, best known for his appearance on the 2020 documentary Uncle Tom. If you haven't seen that, folks, you owe it to yourself to see it. But now there's an Uncle Tom Part 2 that's going to be hitting the theaters very soon now. And Chad's going to tell you all about that. Chad, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Jesse.
I do appreciate it. So you help, not only are you in this, you help produce it and did a lot of work behind the scenes. Tell us what your role is in that.
Sure. So my role was mostly in researching a lot of the material that's in the film. As you mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a plumbing company. And after the success of Uncle Tom, the director, Justin Malone, asked me if I was interested in coming on board the team so we can figure out some things we wanted to do as next steps. And so I decided to downgrade my plumbing business and come on board with his film company. And we've been working hard on Uncle Tom too. So we're excited about the film and excited to put it out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, I am too. There's a lot of good feedback from Uncle Tom Part 1. And so I'm looking, which was most difficult to do, Part 1 or Part 2?
So as far as which one was the most difficult, I actually didn't play much of a role in Part 1. The guys actually came, they interviewed me, and then I got right back to work.
Okay.
And I was, whenever the film was released, I went to the premiere and was blown away about what I saw. And so for me, the answer is Part 2. That's been the most difficult, just because of the information. There's so much that you really can't put into one film. And so with what we ended up going with, it just, we had to make certain decisions. And so, yeah, it was a lot of work.
So you had never produced before this, right?
No, I haven't personally.
So when did you learn about yourself as a producer?
So there's a lot. So basically, Justin Malone, who is the director of the film, he's a professional filmmaker.
Yeah.
He knows how to tell stories. He knows how to break stuff down in a palatable way for people to digest and to understand. And of course, me coming in with the information being such to where there have been people for a century basically lying and deceiving America. You just want to tell that entire story all in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
So the thing that I had to learn is there's just people who aren't ready for the entire truth. You do have to pace things out. You do have to slow things down and tell people the story a little bit at a time. So I guess the lesson that I learned was just to slow things down and to let the story unfold and tell itself.
Were there anything that you discovered in Part 2 that Black folks had gone through and what they believe and all that you were and what happened in history that you were not aware of? Was there anything that surprised you and you're like, wow, what the?
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, whenever we got into the research, there were certain things that we didn't want to touch. And the reason we didn't want to touch them is because they are enshrined and codified into the American psyche. And people both on the so-called right and the left believe these things, particularly as it relates to the civil rights movement. A lot of people believe that the civil rights movement was a high point for America. Doesn't matter, once again, if they are religious, Black, white, right, left, everybody believes that. Yeah. And so to really approach the civil rights movement in an objective way and to look at the facts, if you let the truth speak for itself, you'll see that the civil rights movement was absolutely not a high point for America. In fact, it was a very low point of America because, once again, it took advantage of people's goodwill because most people do want to live in a country where everybody has equality, where everybody's free. That's what people want. So whenever you can push a movement to tell people that if you go our way, this is what you'll get, exactly what ended up happening is what's going to happen, if that makes sense.
It does. Why do you think, and I've noticed that it's hard for most people to believe the truth, and it's easy for them to believe a lie. Why is that? And once they believe into the lie, it's impossible to get them to see that they have believed into a lie. It's like they prefer to believe the lie than the truth. Why is that?
Well, one of the things that's important to understand is that the people that we're talking about, uh, I'll just call them the left, for lack of a better word, but the left has invested so much time, so much energy in the cognitive sciences as well as the social sciences. So they understand social movements and they understand human psychology, which means they know how to use and leverage those social movements to convince people that this is the best course of action. And so you have multiple things happening at once. You have that, and then you also have the education system. What these people figured out is if they can get into the education system and get to kids at a very early age and begin to indoctrinate them in such a way that they're susceptible and they're softened to any social justice movement that comes along, so goes the rest of history. And so to answer your question about why is it so easy for people to believe a lie, I think you're asking a very deep psychological question. But I think as it pertains to this particular film, people want to know that Martin Luther King was a hero. People want to know that Rosa Parks was a hero. They were able to convince us of all these things through storytelling, through education, through media, through all of the things. And so for somebody like us to come along and say, well, hold on, let's slow down. Let's take a second look at this. If people are willing, once again, to look at the truth objectively, they'll be shocked and surprised at what's really going on. And so it's easier and quicker to believe a lie than it is to deconstruct that lie and show people the truth. Because a lot of people, like, everything within them is fighting against the truth.